Welcome back. Let me share my PPT so that we can continue. Um, First of all, I want to repeat and summarize what we have covered last time. Well, I mentioned some strong and weak points of nihilism. The strong point is that active and self-motivated nihilism helps overcome the authority from the past and opens the chance for self-creation. And then I have mentioned the second strong point, that self-directed and active nihilism uh, denies all existing philosophies and worldviews. Third, active and self-directed nihilism affected existentialism, postmodernism, anarchism, and other worldviews. Now, what are the weak points of nihilism? First, from meaninglessness, nothing can come out, or on the other hand, anything can come out. Second, I mentioned if a nihilist thinks and then believes the thought, he contradicts himself. Third, a limited form of active nihilism is possible, but it has its limitation. Fourth, nihilism is the end of art. Fifth, nihilism causes many psychological problems. Then I explained it in detail, and then I want to start from now on to talk about alternatives to nihilism. So what can we offer any alternative to nihilism? First of all, we can say that nothing or anything can come out of meaninglessness. So if we accept nihilism, then we lose the standard and value of life, and this leads to chaos. And the society is likely to fall apart. Therefore, for the human society to exist, we need to accept that there needs to be a certain level of consistency in life. When we look at our daily life, it is full of small and big decisions, and in it exists our value judgment, isn't it? If there is no value judgment, you can imagine that the life itself would be impossible. If life does not have any meaning, then we would not have any reason to live. And we would end up like Nietzsche or Hemingway in a miserable end. However, can we convince anyone that this kind of end is the true solution? Most people with a healthy conscience and common sense would not agree, isn't it? Therefore, the proof of this is that there are only few people in the world that claim this worldview. Especially active nihilism definitely had some merits in it. I mentioned that, I acknowledge that. However, This worldview was a step between naturalism and existentialism. This is just a transition worldview, but not a lasting worldview. Because active nihilism itself was meaningless, so it is not very persuasive. Therefore, the best solution to nihilism is what? Just to give it up. Number two, what can we say about the second weak point of nihilism? Well, we pointed out that it is self-contradictory if this worldview believes in its own thought. It is because it has been clearly shown that rational thinking itself cannot lead to truth. Therefore, if a nihilist affirms anything, it is self-contradiction. If there is no meaning in the word, then nothing can be affirmed, and even the claim that nihilism is right. This is why the most reasonable alternative to nihilism is to abandon it and adopt another worldview that does not contradict itself. From the need to overcome nihilism came later the so-called existentialism. We will talk about that next time. And from the development of existentialism, postmodernism emerged. We'll also discuss that worldview later. Excuse me. However, as we shall see later, these two worldviews have also weaknesses of their own. Therefore, we can suggest another worldview as an alternative. A worldview that claims that the world was made by a master and intelligent designer for a purpose, and in it can be found meaning and value of life. So if we accept that there is an objective standard to life, nihilism can be overcome, right? The third point. The third weak point of nihilism was that there can be temporary active nihilism, but it is limited because we saw how we cannot really deny anything if there is nothing meaningful, and it leads to self-contradictory pessimism. However, if we look at the word carefully, we can see that the word is very orderly. And if we accept the fact that the word was made by an almighty personal being, the meaning of life would be totally changed. For instance, in the biblical worldview, this world is a beautiful creation of an almighty creator, and thus there is a goal and purpose in this world. Even if our life is corrupted by the fall into sin and is subject to futility, we can be restored through the redemption of Christ. If you look at the Old Testament, there is one book of wisdom called Ecclesiastes. Chapter 1 tells about a futile worldview. It says, vanity of vanities, all is vanity. However, we should remember that it does not claim that nihilism is right, but it argues to the contrary that if one denies the Creator, this world would be repetitive, cyclical, and ultimately meaningless. You can see this image made by Gilbert, an American artist. You can see here two images at the same time. First of all, you can see a beautiful lady in front of the mirror, right? But at the same time, if you look at far away, you can also see a skull. Then why did he make this kind of image? Because the title of this work is All is Vanity. So Gilbert, wanted to convey the message that even our physical beauty is very temporary and we are all dying. When we remember that, it seems that all is vanity. But we can overcome this kind of nihilistic worldview. So, if we take the conclusion of the book Ecclesiastes and accept a personal creator, then this world is a beautiful and orderly world, and we have the duty to develop this world as a responsible steward. And we need to remember in our daily lives and follow His will. In the end, we will be judged for all our actions. So here we can see that we have to remember three things. First, for our past, we need to remember our Creator. He is the origin of all. All things are from Him. Second, for the present, we need to remember His words, His commandments, because that's the criteria for our lives. And thirdly, for our future, we have to remember that He will judge all our thoughts and actions and even hidden things. So all things are from Him, through Him, and to Him. So if we remember that, we can have a meaningful and wise life. On the other hand, even if we do not accept the Creator, we can still use our conscience to live a somewhat moral life and share certain standards. Furthermore, we can judge others in the society or nation we belong to under the law that we agreed upon. Therefore, this is the minimum requirement for the human community to be maintained and developed. Fourthly, we saw how nihilism meant the end of art. Many modern arts, literature, dialogue, plays, movies, and so forth use the nihilistic worldview as its topic. For example, Marcel Duchamp's fountain can give some creative insight to us, but none of us would want to drink from this urinal, isn't it? Therefore, we can see the aesthetic aspect, but not really the practical aspect. All art forms have some construct and meaning in them, and they give us a message. This problem is about whether that message gives a positive influence to our lives or not. Let me give you some examples. Here, even Beckett's breath we mentioned or quote as we see here has its own construct and meaning. They represent the meaninglessness of man. However, when we seek this artwork, a question arises deep down in our heart. So what? This art stresses that all of life is meaningless, so it urges us to give it up. And clearly, this art does not lead us to a more active and creative life. Here, I want to offer a strong alternative, and that is Josti Band Orchestra in the Netherlands. Josti means Johannes Stichting. It started a very small group of band, but now they are consisted of 2,000 disabled people, and it has already history of more than 50 years. Well, they have various disabilities, but decades ago, they decided not to fall into nihilistic thought or look at the world cynically, but they decided to focus on their potential and found an instrument that they could still play and gave a strong motivation to many other people. If you watch their practicing video, they cannot even read the musical notes. So they use 7 colors to know which note to play. So one old man plays a triangle for the whole life. And if you can play keyboards, but you cannot read the musical notes, there is an helper when you practice to follow the color of rainbow to each musical note. They also put alphabet so that they can follow and play the instrument. Therefore, the members of the Just Band Orchestra have developed their special instruments sometimes that they can play. If you look at the repetition video, you can easily find it out. So even in their handicap and disabilities, they have a smile on their face when they play or practice. Look at this man when he plays the cymbal. At the end of each year, the King of the Netherlands and many other government officials come to Just the Band's concert. And the king gives flowers to the band members at the end, which touches the heart of so many people. Well, this picture is quite old one, so the Queen Beatrix congratulates the band. So this band orchestra is a strong alternative to the worldview called nihilism. Number 5, nihilism causes many psychological problems, I said, because man is not created in a way that they can live with nihilism. Because human beings are made to seek value. Friedrich Nietzsche, who argued nihilism, spending the last 10 years of his life in a psychological hospital, clearly shows this point. Of course, there are moments in our lives that seem meaningless, but there are other times that are very meaningful. Therefore, nihilism, even in the active form, is more likely to give despair to the person who is ultimately seeking meaning in life. Let me mention another case similar to the example of Just Band in the Netherlands. There is an organization called Bethel in Bielefeld, Germany. Bethel means the house of God in Bible. And this organization was founded in 1867, about 150 years ago, by Inland Mission in German Inneren Mission organization to take care of epilepsy patients. Here, Friedrich Simon took care of mentally or physically ill patients who were pushed aside by the society at that time. So they lived a very miserable life. Later on, however, another pastor, Friedrich von Bodelschwingh, made Bethel one of the biggest social welfare center in Europe. So they have even made a special stamp. Well, this is the picture, the map of Bethel. You can visit if you want. So, since then, many disabled people came here and did not fall into nihilistic or pessimistic worldview. Rather, they became very positive and focused on rehabilitation to live a meaningful life. And even during World War II, when Adolf Hitler tried to kill all these disabled people in the gas chambers, many people from this facility risked their own lives to save the disabled. So many were able to live through the war. If you visit now Bethel, you can find that they live a very happy life and they do a lot of work if they can, making some wood piece of craft or any stamps, book, and so on and so on. So this is almost the conclusion of this study of nihilism. Later on, nihilism is developed into existentialism. Therefore, we can see that there are many alternatives to nihilism, and we can find that many others have succeeded in overcoming nihilism. So, in conclusion, this worldview emerged as a result of deism, which acknowledged only the existence of a transcendent God but denied an immanent one. And afterwards, naturalism, which even gave it up this transcendent God. Friedrich Nietzsche claimed that God is dead. But with God, the meaning of life is gone as well. However, the story of nihilism does not end here, but goes on to existentialism. So I have explained nihilism, the introduction, the contents, and famous thinkers, strong and weak points, and alternatives. And these are the references that I have consulted. Well, I hope this lecture is helpful to you to understand this worldview called nihilism, and we will see you next time. Thank you.